Welcome to Let's Play G-Darius. I'm Golem, and I'm here with co-commentator.
Yourself, I think. I think I'm YYZ on the score table.
Right, yourself is the first name, and presumably the second. So this is a co-op clear where we went through Final Zone New to clear the Embryon.
Yeah, this is our third clear, actually. We cleared the Great Thing route a few weeks ago, then we cleared the Embryon, and we didn't get a recording from it, so later the same day, we cleared the Embryon again. It was a pretty consistent run.
The general gist of it was player one is yourself, and that player takes all of the missile power-ups. Player two...
I think you've got it backwards. I think I'm player two.
Yeah, I just saw player one do something that I would do. So yeah, player two is going to take all of the missile power-ups, and player one is going to stay on the triple shot. So that basically when player two is going through the laser phases, player one still has a strong shot and can basically play his backup during that middle phase of the game.
Right, so there's a trade-off so that both players don't bottom out at the same time, especially because in co-op, um, you're splitting all the power-ups. The game isn't giving you twice as many power-ups, so you have to share them all, and that means that you're both going to end up on laser somewhere at like the end of stage 3 or the midway through stage 4 or something like that. Fairly late. A lot later than you want to be switching to a super weak weapon with both players. So we kind of ditched doing that really quickly and settled on this strategy.
There's also a couple quirks about co-op where who puts in the coin first determines what the bullets aim at, and who chooses the route.
Right, there's a default route select based on P1 or P2. So I'm P2 here is in target control or credit control or whatever you want to say. I'm the one that put the coin in first. I guess we made it a little complicated by doing it that way, but we kind of just pick up the controller and do whatever we're playing these.
I also... was this a one life clear?
I believe this is a one life clear for both of us.
Because what gets really confusing is when one player dies, if the controlling player dies, then all the bullets suddenly focus on the existing player. Meaning, there would be times on the final boss where yourself would pass away, and then suddenly a laser ribbon would zoom after me, and I just wasn't even looking for it.
Yeah, and then it sort of is cascading deaths. So it kind of makes sense that the clear we got here was one life clear. In our earlier Great Thing clear, though, we did have earlier deaths, but they were never in a final boss type situation.
Yeah, they were... I feel like if you die during the level, you can adapt because there's more space between everything that's happening.
G-Darius is very recoverable. Your capture power-ups are a big part of your power level. So, Eclipse Eye.
Yeah.
We just did a safety strategy here, which is to just shoot Eclipse Eye as much as you can, and then beam as soon as he does a non-shootable attack. He's really, in single player, you can do this exact same thing, kill him without ever facing any danger. So this is a really co-op strat.
Alright, let's see how...
So for the routes, we decided we're going to New, which is in the center, so you have a lot of route choice there. So we decided on Beta over Gamma just because we had done the Omicron route, which forces Gamma. So we wanted to do something different. That was really, I think, the only reason we took beta.
Yeah, so I guess I should just say Omicron. We're talking about the final column of levels. Omicron is the bottommost one, the O, and that's where you fight Great Thing.
So we're talking to people that don't speak Greek, you're telling me? That don't read Greek?
I think I learned these letters.
Oh, yeah, I'll know it forever now.
Yeah. I thought, yeah, I didn't realize before playing G-Darius that Greek letters had like capital and lowercase.
Unbelievable.
Right, because why is this called delta? It's not a triangle.
Yeah, well, you didn't do a degree in math, so. You see some of these.
And the new, that's the V in the very middle.
Right. Right, so we're going to that route. And so beta is, yeah, I don't have anything else to say here.
I think in general, we just picked the fun route because I know Theta was kind of a pain, but it was like, well, we want to clear it.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to beta, Gamma has a lot of weighting because it's the Queen Fossil battle, where you're in a sort of a battleship fight where there's a lot of transition animations. I personally find it pretty boring. So beta was definitely more fun.
Yeah. And beta is the giant level, which I thought was a little disorienting initially playing the game, that like I really don't know these enemies all that well and suddenly there's a giant variation.
Yeah, I didn't even pick up on it until I looked at the capture gallery in the game and saw that there were second versions of all these different enemies that only showed up in beta. I was like, oh, beta's a giant level.
I think we both take the big shield here, if I remember right.
Yeah, this was a case where generally we planned out, or at least I planned out what kind of which capture I'm going to take at which point, and just for fun we tried to take different ones. But we had done enough practice runs where someone takes a random hit in this stage that I thought it was worth just both of us taking the shield. You don't want to screw up a run in stage 2.
I think part of that is the giant enemies that, like, because they're so much bigger, they occupy so much more space. And G-Darius already kind of feels like a tiny game. And then maybe that's because I'm not used to 4x3 with a Darius game in particular.
Yeah, well, the other aspect of the giant enemies, though, is that they do have more HP than their smaller equivalents. Which means that when they come on screen, they last longer on screen, which means they always get time to get a bullet off. And the rank is increasing at this point, so the bullets are coming a little faster. So on a clean run at this point, you're going to be getting 1 or 2 bullets from every enemy that you don't kill on spawn point. So the shield does end up being a pretty good safety measure.
Yeah, so many of these enemies are just dying instantly that I didn't realize they had more HP.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about the capture gallery. You can see all those values.
Huh.
I couldn't tell you how much damage each bullet does, though. Speaking of, what rapid fire setting are you using?
This is the default in-game, so I think you said that was...
You're using rapid shots at 30 hertz.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're using 20?
I'm using 20 hertz just because I felt was a more comfortable medium with no shot gap firing from the back of the screen. It does mean it takes a little longer to point blank bosses, which is not actually an important scoring factor to my knowledge in G-Darius, so I think you'd probably be alright, regardless of your setting.
It would be important for safety, but not score. I mean, for score, you're going to want to extend the phases, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I practiced the first couple bosses of Topsy and Tripod Sardine to try to improve my scores a little bit, ultimately, it's mostly deciding when I'm allowed to shoot. Like, I have to hold back fire most of the time.
And that's because to score well on the bosses, you need to get to their beta beam phase. That the boss will shoot a giant beam, and you'll counter with your alpha beam. And the larger, when you counter their beam, your own beam gets larger, and then the size of it determines your multiplier on the beam score at the very end.
Yeah, thankfully you can see the score rate, beam power, alpha beam power HUD that the HD collection has. So that shows you your multiplier. You can see the multiplier right there just went up to 4 when using beam. So that's the lowest multiplier the beam can be is 4, and it can go up to 12.
I'm actually not sure. So I think there's the ×3 for the bomb, ×4 for the beam, but then there's a discrete alpha beam bonus at the very end. We'll see after beating the final boss.
Right, but there's even what the score HUD shows ×4 with a base alpha beam. As soon as you have a beam dual, it switches to ×6 for the single alpha beam.
Oh.
And then it goes up to, well, the multiplier increases for the double, triple, and maximum. Fourfold is what the maximum strength is called, which I'm not sure you can even see on every boss.
I've never noticed that, I think, because I'm too busy looking at the beam.
Mm.
Anyway, we took Epsilon.
Yeah, we went with Epsilon here. Again, Zeta was one we'd already played. Delta is probably the toughest boss of these three. I personally just think Dimension Diver is cool, so it's a fun fight to see.
Not that you'll see it in this run.
Right, it's more of a single player or a score and run type fight to watch.
Every Zone 3 is this meteor level, right?
Yeah, they all have, I believe the first half is meteors, and then the second half is a choice between more meteors or base.
And I know you try to go for this aiming guy, and typically I go for the red shot bats, but that's a little hectic in co-op.
Yeah, so actually in the first 2 routes that we took, or the first 2 areas we took, we didn't encounter mini-bosses. So this is the first stage where considering the mini-boss capture is relevant to this particular run. And because, I think just because I liked using Right Home, which is this homing capture, player 1, Golem, ended up responsible for capturing the mini-boss, which definitely gets can get hairy at times. So this is the first part where you're really like escorting a mini boss. In the first 2 stages, if you do see them in whatever route you're taking, they're easy to keep alive, or they sort of stay alive on their own. On this stage, it is a challenge in and of itself to keep... I forget his name now.
Yeah, the fish mini-boss. Whatever.
They're all fish mini-bosses?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Missile McGee. Anyway, yeah, what makes it hard is that it's the asteroid belt level, so there's going to be a lot of stuff from every direction.
And this guy doesn't really defend himself very well. You can see he's only got a single missile shooting out from the front. I ended up switching to Moto Gifu, which is the rotating capture here, because I think I had taken enough damage with Ray Home that I was confident he was going to die, and wanted a more defensive capture. Again, this is just playing for safety, so this rotating shield guy is going to eat a lot of bullets that I don't notice.
Yeah, I always get scared with the rotating captures that it's a bullet's gonna slip through or something. But I guess bullets just move slow enough in this game, and those captures are big enough that it ends up being useful.
It's funny watching the replay. They look like they're moving so much slower than it feels like they're moving in real time.
Um,
So we did do a little green power-up balancing as well. We talked about the red power-up balancing in stage 1. So with green power-up, the ship's bombs, since that is quick to level up, it only takes 4 items, we would rotate who would get the next one. So one of us got twin, then the other got twin. At this point, player 1 is approaching multi, and I believe he's going to get the next green power up so that he can have multi going ahead. That's something he can't lose if he dies, and then I'll switch over to taking the green power ups.
I also forgot to mention we chose we chose area I because it turned out the base was easier. I think
it's not. I don't think that's why we chose area I.
Oh.
I think we chose area I because on my single player run, I take Epsilon and I play J. And so I just pushed this towards I because I didn't want to play the same area on both runs.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, the base is definitely harder, especially to keep the mini boss capture alive.
I think this is the first boss where we're shouting out a strategy before it happens.
Yeah, because this guy is actually more than just beam as soon as he attacks. We do have a really simple strategy here. It's just going to be both beam to start. It would be even better if one person still had the mini-boss here, because the mini-boss does start at a higher beam level. I think it starts at the ×6 multiplier, but it's fine for this strategy that we did not. I took a bullet there because the way that Dimension Diver moves up and down while he's doing a trident attack is a little bit unpredictable. Or at least something we never figured out.
Yeah, plus he jerks. He, bullets.
Yeah. So here we're taking Theta. Theta, I think, is the hardest of the stage 4s. That's just my opinion, I guess. But this is definitely the stage that we had trouble with, and that we had to practice quite a bit.
Yeah. Certainly harder than Fire Fossil on the top round.
So here, now we are doing more regimented level strategies. Even our positioning is more consciously pre-prepared. So I'm running the bottom here because I'm looking for this laser capture, which is going to fire up and cover things, and because there was some other reason I'm on the bottom that I don't remember.
It's not the extend, because I think in this recording we swap and I get extend or something like that.
Right, there's a point at which, yes, right here when this red shows up, we're going to switch sides. I'm going to take the top, and there are going to be a few more instances where we're going to switch top and bottom. And that's really important in this stage because of the barrier enemies. This, rotating... I don't remember this guy's name.
This guy, that...
Right, so this is why we're divided to the top and bottom of the screen, because there's these enemies that have a whole lot of HP and that shoot that constant stream of bullets that's pretty tricky to jump across. So we try to avoid doing that wherever possible, which means splitting the screen in half.
Yeah, earlier you were crossing that gap of bullets in Mushi. That looked smaller than...
Well, the difference between Mushi, Meisama, and Darius is that, for one thing, quite a few pixels in terms of resolution, and second of all, that everything is 1 or 2 pixels large in Mishime-sama, so bullets can overlap the ship with a...
You can graze.
Yeah, I mean, you can cut across stuff, and I mean, it goes a lot deeper than that, to be honest. Why you can weave between bullets. Caves games are timed. G-Darius is not. The speed of the ship relative to the speed of the bullets and the gaps in the bullets is fairly arbitrary in G-Darius, which is sort of typical of like these earlier era shooters, whereas in a cave game, I can intuit where a bullet's going based on where it was fired from and knowing the pattern. I don't have to watch the bullet.
So is that... I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is that it's a lot more typical for a line of bullets to... you wouldn't micro dodge. You just macro dodge everything.
In G-Darius, yeah. Yeah, it's a... I mean, if you want an adjective for it, it's just a higher level of precision in the game engine itself, where...
in Mushi.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's more accurate.
One thing that makes the dividing route tricky is that power-ups that one player or another will appear on the opposite end of the screen. So like earlier, yourself had to swap up to get the red because he's going for the wave. And I think I just saw us switch positions so that the other player could get the blue, the shield, the armor, sorry.
And that was a part where there are a lot of those barrier guys at the same time as the area transition. Almost all the area transitions in the game are stacked with enemies, so you sort of need to plan ahead if there's one area that you want to commit to, which there probably is, because that's going to determine which boss you're going to face.
I also want to mention that in the opening to this cave, I always use the alpha beam because this is when my capture tends to be dying. So like, just by dint of rehearsing this stage, I had memorized like, I don't know how much health my capture has, but I know it's about to die probably, because captures take like tens of bullets, so you're never gonna know. Unless you have like an insane attention span, you'll never know exactly when it's going to die.
Honestly, I think that if you're able to track the number of bullets that your capture is taking, then your capture shouldn't be taking any bullets because you're...
You're watching it some sort of fine level.
Yeah, you're observing the game pretty closely there. I think you're a better player than I am. But yeah, the captures, except in a couple places... tend not to incidentally die. I get a feel when I've taken like a big hit, and that's when I might throw one away. So we also try to balance capture balls pretty evenly between the two of us, because basically, part of G-Darius is having a capture as frequently as possible. That's part of your power level. So we both are capturing things at about the same rate.
Right. It doesn't make any sense for one person to get all the capture balls and get score bonuses when we're going just for survival. I did want to highlight that I'm going up on the top route because this part of the level is so super busy, and being able to take out those turrets in the ceiling is like one very small but still important thing to do to simplify the space.
This is actually like a perfect freeze frame here because it captures like all the considerations that we have going on that's determining our positioning. First of all, I'm still on laser, so I being player 2, and still on laser, so I'm still taking all the reds. There's a red towards the bottom of the screen here. Additionally, there's a yellow down here. and the yellow is a screen clear, and it's important for me not to take the yellow at this point.
Because there's an enemy in the
Because
background with a
an
power up.
enemy in the background that you can see just above and to the left of player 2's ship. That guy is going to be cleared by the yellow power up, and then we're going to lose the red power up that he's carrying. So I need to wait until I kill him to get the yellow. I need to get the red. I need player 1 to not get any of these things either. And Gray Stripe is following me, player 2, because I'm the ranking credit player. So there's a ton going on this screen, which is kind of what G-Darius is like at times.
If I'm remembering right, this is what we had to rehearse the most. Like, once we figured out a good strategy for the Embryon, it wasn't really that hard, but this, I don't think we ever got consistent at.
No, this was the last thing we were practicing as we were doing our final runs. Oh, and additionally, this is where I'm going to bomb and switch to Gray Stripe, because Gray Stripe is very helpful to have for the rest of the level.
Yeah, one simple thing that we haven't mentioned so far is that bombing to capture a mini-boss helps a lot, because bombs don't damage... bombs and beams don't damage gold shields. So if you bomb, it'll eat up the mini-boss's shots without damaging the mini-boss itself, so you're fine to just point blank it and capture it whenever the mask falls off.
I didn't actually know that.
Oh, yeah. It's really annoying with the... I tried using the beam to clear out, like, giant missiles and stuff like this, and...
Oh. Yes, I never really had the impetus to use the beam outside of the boss fights. And for the bomb, it's really hard to tell what it's hurting and what it isn't. But most importantly, even if you're not in the bomb's explosion area, you're safe while the bomb is going off.
Yeah, the hitbox on that bomb is not legible.
No, it doesn't matter either.
I paused it here because I wanted to point out the ridiculous slowdown that G-Darius has. That I don't know how evident the chug is to someone who hasn't played this before, but...
And it is all worse, or slower, that is to say, in 2-player. You can actually, if you stop firing, you can speed up the game for a second.
Yeah, I guess that's another way in which 2-player mode is easy mode.
Yeah, I think that's one of the first things we noticed when we were just credit feeding the game. So Deathwings is, in single player, this is a pretty tough boss. Our run here is pretty simple, but it's, it's getting more complicated. It's a little bit harder than Dimension Diver. I use the command attack here just because I felt like I needed to use a command attack at some point in the run. Those do not make a very big difference at all in the speed at which you clear bosses.
What's a command attack?
Command attack are like a Street Fighter style input where you would do a quarter circle or a half circle forward with the stick while holding the shot button in the case of G-Darius, and that will trigger a special, usually an extra spread move from the mini-boss, and that's a mini-boss capture-only technique.
Right.
And this is there are other shooting games that have inputs like that, but that is one of the more unique aspects of G-Darius.
Isn't that like a Cho-Aniki thing?
Yeah, the series does eventually have that.
And then... that's what I associated with because of Brothers Duo-Mazov.
Yeah.
And then at this point, we're using a beam because there's chasing lasers coming up.
This is mostly just a time to get in the beam damage. The thing about Deathwings is that his next phase is going to be an attack from above where we can't shoot him directly. And then following that is going to be his actual beam phase, at which point he's not going to be ready to die if we haven't pre-beamed him, basically. So we just need to get in that first beam.
I mean, you say that, but that spread gave me trouble. Like, I needed to beam there so that I didn't have to dodge all the bullets.
Well, it's targeted at me, so it should be easier for me to dodge.
Actually, I wonder if that is... I wonder if that is part of the difficulty of two-player, that, like, the target of the bullets is moving around without my input.
Yeah, that's related to what I was just saying about Mishime-sama, where everything in that is relative frame of reference, so I don't need to watch the bullet. I can reference where it's coming from and where my ship is to determine where it's going to go. But when you have a second player in play and they're drawing the targeting, there's no way you can watch them and yourself and the firing point and adjust accordingly to what the spread is going to be. So it does put you way more into visual dodging zone.
Also worth noting is that this boss, this and Dual Horn, are two bosses that charge unceremoniously, and so if we take too long here, the boss is going to just ram right through, and your armor does not offer you much protection from a body slam.
Absolute Defender also has a weird leap across the screen.
Oh, I forgot about that, but yeah.
So yeah, we were in good damage there, basically, and we're able to kill him before he could move across the screen, which is what's important to do.
You know, you're saying him, but there is the age-old debate of whether, like, it's a battleship, so...
Is it a battleship or is it a creature?
Right.
And yeah, who said it's a male creature anyway? I can't tell.
That's, yeah, I guess, you know, I don't know what Belser or whatever alien, what genders they have.
I don't know how to gender a manta ray, let alone an alien giant mechanical manta ray. So here we're choosing new because this is the whole point, is to get to Embryon, which is, I don't know if this is the official TLB, but if you, true last boss, but if you played the final bosses in G-Darius, it's obvious that the Embryon is the hardest.
It's also that new is like the most fictionally abstract level. Like, there's this disco floor background.
Right. Things escalate when you get to new, so to speak, in a way that they don't when you arrive at the other final stages.
Yeah, everything else fits into the mold of, like, I know, for instance, Lambda is basically a Theta type level.
Yeah, or it's a space fortress, or it's a city, or it's a setting that you can describe.
Right. I also wanted to mention about these. What animals are these, by the way?
So these are yatas.
Well,
I think it's probably supposed to be a jellyfish.
Yeah, okay. And the jellyfish have a neat attack where every time you move laterally, they rotate around you either clockwise or counterclockwise.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a name for this type of multiple, but it's like a screw.
Yeah, it's neat. It's like an extra layer of control that I don't think you see in the other captures. Like, you have mini bosses that track you lazily, and you have regular enemies that stick right by your side. I don't think there's any like this that move like directly based on your movement, but also not change their orientation to you.
Right. The other ones are position dependent. They're an offset of your position. These ones are movement dependent. So we're taking Z, I think just because it's the last letter of the alphabet, so that seems like it should be the true last boss.
No, we took it because it's easier. The Embryon's easier on Z. But wasn't there a bullet type we couldn't handle?
I forget. It's been a long time since we practiced. Why?
Oh, look, it's an extend.
This is the only time on this run that we see Karuhi. Kind of weird, because I'm just so used to seeing him all the time on the Shi run that I practice.
I completely forgot. I saw my bomb go up into Haruhi in, like, slow motion.
Yeah, so we screwed that one up. What I would normally do is capture Karuhi there, because he's a really powerful flamethrower attack that will speed up the first couple phases of the Embryon. But luckily we had practiced in a lot of different configurations on the Embryon, because it's just hard to consistently get captures through this missile segment. Missiles and any other sort of... Like, this is basically a redux of the asteroid segment we did before, where they're coming from all directions and they can do continuous damage if they overlap the capture.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time moving around Dream Tender right now.
To be honest, you're bad at the mini-boss management, and I only let you do it because I didn't care if we got to the bosses with them or not.
Yeah.
We were practicing strategies both ways. In single player, I can do this. Generally, I can keep them all alive. It takes a little practice, a little bit of memorization, but it's not that crazy.
Yeah, I never got to do it. It's weird that the diamonds count as waves. They were giving us wave bonuses.
I didn't notice that before. We didn't talk about the wave bonuses, but this isn't a scoring run, so I don't think there's really any reason to get into it.
No. So I think we're gonna beam right off the bat.
I think... Well, so this is where we come in, where we don't know how much HP Dream Tender has. It would be best if we could keep him alive, but we can't count on that. So we're going to beam through the first phase just to skip a bunch of attacks that are going to eat up our captures anyway. Here, 2 players going to beam. Point here is that we've got captures coming up, so we're similar to Deathwings, just burning through the damage potential. We both grab captures here.
Yeah, actually, so another consideration was those captures come out super fast and it's easy to kill them by mistake.
Right.
And I think even if you damage Embryon too quickly, he skips, the Embryon skips over that part, right?
If you kill him and end this phase, then you don't get that, which is a problem we were having with a different strategy we were running, where we were saving both beams to the second phase. Or maybe that was when we were using... No, that was Karuhi. When Karuhi would get through here plus a beam, that would be enough to kill the boss. And you miss the capture phase, and it's going to be a long time before he spawns more captures again. And that time is going to include beta beams and many other attacks that you want to eat.
This...
Ref Knight.
Yeah, the rainbow ball here, didn't that block beta beams?
Right. So there was a question here whether to use Ref Knight or iFather Plus, the capture that we both have at this point. In single player, I was having luck with Ref Knight. I think that was actually probably just a bad call. He has a special property that he absorbs beta beams, or it has a special property that absorbs beta beams, but I believe if both of the Embryon's beta beams hit one Ref Knight, then it is destroyed. And so you can still get hit by it.
I just thought that was, I mean, that would be useful on some of the other final bosses where you see the Ref Knight, but that's just neat that that's a variation in the game, that there's like an alternate method of interplay with the, or an alternate method of interacting with the beta beam.
Yeah, it's cool, and Ref Knight is another one that, as you were just talking about with Yata, the jellyfish, Ref Knight has its own unique follow pattern. It works like a shadow option.
Well, doesn't the police car thing?
Oh, yeah, that's right. The police car also has a shadow option.
Yeah.
Ref Knight doesn't have any attack, so iFather Plus does shoot these small bullets, so that might add to our attack potential. I'm not sure how important that was.
It is about to help in a second, but I wanted to note that was important for player 1 staying high to draw the lasers away from player 2. I think that's the only reason we did that split.
You said that backwards, though.
Oh, nuts.
2 goes high to draw the lasers away from player 1.
Yeah.
This is where, watching this Embryon fight, you really see the distinction in the targeting, where these disco lasers are going to always be following P2, and that is going to mean a lot of movement, and it's going to be chaotic if both players are in the same place. It has ramifications in that it's dangerous for the non-targeted player who can't predict where the attacks are going to go, and for the targeted player, me in this case, I don't want another ship in my vicinity because it's just distracting. We look really similar.
Yeah. And then in this phase, yeah, so I'm up at the top. I have the, whatever, I have the balls.
iFather Plus.
The iFather Plus. And I didn't realize until, like, a couple hours into practicing this game that they're actually really good at blocking bullets if you account for the little gap in the middle there. So at this point, I'm trying to take out the head of Embryon just to ease up on the bullets that it's firing. Plus, I'm pretty sure yourself has to be conscious about these, the yellow thing on screen.
Right. So we didn't put it out during Deathwings, but a few of the bosses have this helix laser, as I call it, that is in a bunch of Embryon's phases. And it is very fast. Its tracking is kind of slow and awkward, and it's very wide. So it's just, for me, an extremely hard attack to dodge. And then when layered on top of other attacks, it's just a lot harder than it looks like, or at least I never got the rhythm how to get away from that. So the point of that beam was just to eat up those helix lasers.
That's one of those attacks where I remember you, like, laying down a save state and just, like, playing continuously, like, how far is his head going to angle this time? And it didn't end up being, like, the Embryon aims where you were at the time it shot the prior beam.
Yeah, it was something that was one level of abstraction too high for me. It was like, if you imagine a shadow option that's following you at a certain distance, then it's aiming at the shadow option, not at you. So you can't loop back over yourself too quickly, or you're going to go back into its path. But then if you don't move fast enough, then it's eventually going to catch up to you.
Yeah. So yeah, there, right there, I knocked out that head, so we're not going to have to worry about so many bullets during this phase.
And we're point blanking a little bit here to get in extra missiles, which will make a difference in when the final phase ends.
And I think we're about to see the tethers, right?
Oh, this is the great tethers. These...
Actually, before the tethers, I just want to point out the way this boss is spinning during this phase,
right,
and freaking blinking,
That's actually what I was just going to say. Watching this playing back, it's so visually chaotic with the movement, the flashing. The tethers are flashing. They're now triangles on top of our ships. There's a radial pattern going on. All of it is just having this like visually disorienting effect on you, which I think is, for better or worse, sort of unique to this fight.
Yeah. Uh, I'll leave it at that. And then we're about to beam because this, you can see like there's a disco laser ready to kill us. So this is, I think from here on out, just an easy way to the end of the boss.
Yeah, this is where like we're paying off all our beam strats so that like we've kind of balanced it out so that we'll be able to finish him with a beam while he's doing that disco laser pattern.
That's why 2 player is so much easier, because you can't bank captures in single player. You only have one at a time, but you can in 2 player because like the second player staggers when they bomb.
Yeah. So that's the run. Of co-op runs we've done, that one was in the middle. That's of 3 co-op runs we've done, right?
It was harder than Biohazard Battle.
Yeah, definitely harder than Biohazard Battle.
But like Darius Gaiden,
Gradius.
Whoa, yeah, Gradius Gaiden took us 50 hours, I think.
Yeah, really substantial practice went into Greatest Gaiden. This just wasn't at that level. The beams, the bombs, the capture options, there's just a lot of latitude that G-Darius gives you in working around the challenges, I think. So it doesn't maybe give you the greatest feeling of mastery of the game, but at the same time, exploring all those systems is part of the fun of putting in more credits to the cabinet.
And after putting a decent amount of time into every entry in the Darius series, there's a certain level of schlock to all of them. And certainly in G-Darius, if that's going to be behind a novel system like the capture system, that's preferable to just having like 30 armor to eat 30 bullets.
Yeah. Yeah, the capture system is something that I really like. I'm not a big fan of power-ups in shooting games.
What?
I don't like having to... I mean, all my deaths and everything come from trying to pick up power from greedy. It's all greedy deaths.
Yeah, okay.
Trying to pick up stuff when I don't need it. So G-Darius, it's very simplified because the enemies and the power-ups are the same thing. So, I mean, yeah, there's the additional red, green, blue, but the main capture power-ups are the enemies. So, it's just one simple action that you can use to choose what your attack power is going to be, and it's all scripted into the level design.
I was actually impressed how many different captures there are. Like,
oh yeah, it's like 100 or something.
Like in Kirby, there's the promise that each enemy is a distinct power-up, but then it turns out there's like 5 different fireballs. But in G-Darius, like if you see a new enemy, it is its own thing. Which is not to say like they all have distinct shot patterns or whatever, but they're all distinct in some way.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's definitely, I would say that's a plus of playing the HD version over any of the older versions, because this has the capture gallery in it that will keep track of those captures for you, and you can see which levels they show up in and see which ones to experiment with, and that sounds really dry and boring when I describe it that way, like filling in a database of these things. But as Golem just said, you'd be surprised by the amount of variety there is. So I found it worthwhile to do that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a 30-minute game, but it took us,